Do we have a fantasy star on our hands here, George? Here is the question with Jaden Daniels of the Washington Commanders. A lot of folks went into the fantasy season saying, hey, look, maybe this isn't Anthony Richardson, but it could be the next best thing. I'm here to tell you, I don't know. I'm sort of feeling like Daniels could be better than Anthony Richardson.
I don't know if I'm going to go there yet, all right? But I think he's in the conversation, yeah. What did we hear at draft time? A lot of people wanted a quarterback who could move. Right? You don't want the guy who's going to take 5-7 steps and throw the football anymore because you want that additional rushing yards. You know, you get 50, 60 yards, that's a touchdown. Right? That's why Josh Allen is so valuable. Lamar Jackson is so valuable. Right? You go up and down. Jalen Hurts. You go up and down here. I think Daniels is going to be a good quarterback. I think Washington got their guy, and he can throw the football too. We know McLaurin's a really good wide receiver. It may not be much else there. We'll see what McCaffrey can be. Luke McCaffrey can be there in time. But you know, I do have hope for him. I think at season's end, he's going to be a quarterback one. It may be a low-end quarterback one, but a quarterback one nonetheless.
Yeah, I was really impressed watching him in that game. All right, now Anthony Richardson, look, he's going to have a big year. He's going to have a big fantasy year. There's no question about it. I don't know about the long-term viability here. And look, give him credit. He hung in there with the Houston Texans. My fear for him, George, is that when you go back and you watch film, if you protect the deep ball against Richardson, he could hurt you with his legs. And that may be where all of his fantasy value is coming from. I cannot see him throwing 2 70-yard bombs like he did again.
That should come in time, right? Practice time. I think he will get better here. I think Richardson's going to be fine. Does need to learn how to avoid hits. All right. Once again, remember that hit from Tua last night? He initiated it. Slide. The rules are made for you not to get hit. Take advantage of them.
Welcome, everybody, into all new episode of Bare Knuckle Fighting Main Event here on SportsGrid. I'm Brian Ciano. Thank you so much for joining us as we take our weekly look at everything going on in the world of the Bare Knuckle Fighting Championships. Now, of course, been in a little bit of a break here, a couple weeks off as they prepare to jump over the pond and make a big splash in Marbella, Spain. The first time they're going to be fighting in Spain, probably one of their biggest cards they've ever had outside of the U.S. Of course, they had in the first London card. They've had some other UK cards. They've had Bulgaria, they've had Thailand, but I think as far as Europe goes, this might be the biggest arena, biggest card that they have had over there, and it's going to be a huge one. We have a bunch of title fights coming up on that card. We broke those down last week, and we will continue to do so again as we get closer and closer to those fights, but obviously, with a couple weeks off, we're going to start looking ahead a little bit, and we're going to get into that October 25th card out in Denver, and we're going to talk to some of the fighters involved on that card coming up on this show later on. We're going to talk to strawweight Sydney Sundance Smith. We're going to do 2 segments with her, catch up, find out what happened in Knuckle Mania 4. Obviously, that late notice fight she took, it was a one that did not go her way against some very tough opponent up at a much higher weight class. And then we'll see what her plans are coming in Denver, if she's going to stay at this weight class, if she what she's been up to otherwise. And then later on, we're going to catch up with our guy Hungry Hassan Al-Hamin. Hanim is going to be fighting for the first time in a BKFC numbered card. We've seen some great fights from him on the Prospect Series up in Edmonton, now making his regular BKFC debut after getting signed pretty quickly. A quick turnaround, only about 2 months, I think, since he got signed. He is going to be making his debut out in Denver. And we'll also meet lightweight Ramiro Figueroa, who's going to be fighting on that card as well. So 3 fighters from that Denver card, October 25th. And, that's a big card, and we're going to break that down in just a second. And later on, of course, I'm going to tell you about some of the other fights that we're hearing coming out of the mix for the BKFC later on throughout the year. There's a couple other cards that are going to be announced, including one that's a little different than what we're used to. I'll let you know about that before we get out of here later today. But right now, let's break down what we have coming up October 25th out in Denver and break down some of the top fights on that card. Now, of course, the main fight, the one we're all going to be watching for, is going to be a title on the line, cruiserweight title. That is the vacant cruiserweight title. Of course, this was held by the juggernaut Lorenzo Hunt, who in fact fought one of the guys fighting on this fight, Chris Camozzi, beat him when Camozzi was trying to take that title. Now that title is vacant after the suspension to Lorenzo Hunt for the test that he took fighting for that heavyweight title against Mick Terrell. So now With it being up for grabs, who better to go fight for it than the number 2 and number 3 guys in this division in Chris Camozzi and Sawyer DP, of course, as we said, Camozzi, number 2, 37-year-old, started 2-0 in the BKFC. Had some great fights out there in Denver. By first round finish was very impressive, and that's why he got himself a title shot against Lorenzo Hunt. That was lackluster. Not just for him, for both of them. If you talk to both of them after that fight, like, yeah, that was not a good fight. It was not the most entertaining fight, not the most exciting fight, not the way we saw either of those guys do their bidding throughout the first couple fights of their BKFC career. It was much more measured, kind of feeling each other out, fight through all 5 rounds. A very respectful fight by both guys. Obviously, they both knew the other guy possessed the power that could put them down if they weren't careful, but unfortunately for fans, probably a little more careful than anybody else wanted to see. So Lorenzo Hunt held on to the belt during that fight, but now it's vacant, and Camozzi taking another shot at it in Denver, where he has fought all of his fights for the BKFC and will continue to do so on this one. So he'll have the hometown crowd behind him as he tries to take that title over Sawyer DP, the number 3 cruiserweight. He's 30 years old, so about 7 years age difference there for DP. He's younger, 5-2 in the BKFC, even more experience. All of them on KOs, either win or lose by finish. Sawyer DP, very exciting. He's going to go in there and try to take your head off, or you're going to take his off. Someone's going out on their back. No one is going to be handing it to the judges when this guy is involved. He's on a 3-fight win streak. Of course, last beat Keegan Vandermeer by first round KO, a guy who was, being spoken about as a possible contender. Made him look, pretty pedestrian. Took him out really quick in that fight. Now, when you get to this matchup, when these guys face off against each other, Camozzi's going to have an advantage. He's going to not just the being in Denver, where he lives, and the altitude and the fans and all those things that he's going to have working in his favor, but also he's going to be standing taller. He's got him by at least a few inches, about 4 or 5 inches there, and he's longer as well. Can have the height, can have the reach on the little, the smaller DP, can have the fans. Does all that play in his favor and set him up for the win? I don't know, but he's going to have to be careful. He can't take all that for advantage because, like we said, we know that Sawyer DP is coming out there looking to take him out and not looking to, just pitter-patter for 5 rounds and leave it up to the judges. So you better not sleep on this guy, Sawyer DP, because he's going to bring it. Can we see from Chris Camozzi what he saw in the first 2 fights where, he uses that great counter strike ability to put his opponents on the mat? All that will remain to be seen October 25th at the end of this month. Then, in a welterweight co-main event, you have Brandon Gertz versus Cameron Jumpman Van Camp. Of course, we hooked up with Van Camp, talked to him about this fight. Gertz, 39 years old, 1-1 the BKFC, lost to Jake Lindsay, then beat Christian Torres. Both of his fights have been in Denver as well. The longtime MMA fighter fought a lot of fights in Bellator. Both of his fights have been by stoppage in the first 2 rounds, both his win and his loss. So another guy that's coming in there looking for violence, looking for finishes, not looking to go the distance. He's going to go in there against Cameron Van Camp, the 31-year-old, going to have a big advantage in the age gap. We'll see if that, gives him an advantage in the speed as well. He's 1-1 in the BKFC as well. Came in, lost to Holloway, then beat Micah Terrell by second round KO. So obviously has improved from first to second fight. We'll see if he can make another big jump against this veteran in his 3rd fight, a former UFC fighter. So both these guys with a lot of MMA experience have made the crossover to the BKFC, have tried to adjust. One has, both of them lost and then won. So getting more used to this new area of combat sports and new area of their career. We'll see which one has made the bigger steps as they get into their 3rd fight with the BKFC. Van Camp, going to be taller, going to be longer, just like we just talked about with, of course, Chris Camozzi. Van Camp, can he use that length to his advantage? Can he keep his opponent at bay? Gertz is going to be coming in there looking to close the distance, looking to get hands on him and hit him with some big shots and knock him down. Can he use that big, almost half a foot reach advantage and height advantage to, really keep him at bay and pick him apart and maybe get the finish later on? We will see what the Jumpman can do when he goes against Brandon Gertz in Gertz's backyard. Then, women's strawweight fight. This one's going to be an important fight. Now, you got a debuting fighter in Kat Pabraki, 31-year-old, making her BKFC debut, has a lot of boxing, Muay Thai, and MMA experience, was on a season of The Ultimate Fighter. Another one with, UFC experience, a lesser regard than Jumpman there, but she was on the show, had her experience with some, high-level fighters in the UFC there, learning from them. Now she makes her BKFC debut against Sydney Sundance Smith. Smith, 1-2 in the BKFC, came in with a great win over Annie Nguyen in her first fight. Got the attention of people saying, okay, this was a woman who could maybe get into the mix as a contender, then lost to Melanie Shaw for the chance to fight for that title. Then jumped up and waited to fight Crystal Pittman on short notice at LA, and it was a quick and brutal night for her as she took the loss there as well. I will talk to her about that coming up next, but this is a big fight for her. Where does Smith, 32 years old, end up in the BKFC? Does she get the win, get back to 500, and put herself back in the mix of being one of the top fighters at 115 possibly, if she gets another win or two? Or does she take her third loss in a row and start going back the other side of the mountain? We will find out. I will talk to her about how she feels coming into this, but this is a very important fight for her. Less so for Paprocki, who obviously is making her BKFC debut, but this is a big fight for Sundance Smith here in her fourth fight with the BKFC. Then at bantamweight, you have Dylan Schulte versus Derek Perez. This could be a very violent fight as well. Dylan the Villain, 28 years old, 2-1 the BKFC, beat Gates, lost to Louis Lopez. It's a tough opponent, obviously, for anybody, and then beat Roberto Armas, all again by finish. So we're getting a lot of violent fighters here for this Denver card, a lot of fighters that are not going to be messing around looking for points. Derek Perez, 32 years old, 2-2 in the BKFC, lost to Ryan Reber in February. In his last three fights have all gone by finish, whether he wins or loses them. Tons of boxing, MMA experience throughout his combat sports career. So two guys who have a lot of experience and are going to be trying to finish the other one. And then another one, Chancey Superfly Wilson, going to be joining back in the BKFC mix, coming off the Gilberto Aguero loss last November. Haven't seen him in a while. Does this put him back on the map in that division, or does this put him behind the eight ball with a lot of the other fighters moving up? We'll see. All that in Denver this month. Coming up, but next we'll talk to Sydney Sundance Smith here on SportsGrid.
Do we have a fantasy star on our hands here, George? Here is the question with Jaden Daniels of the Washington Commanders. A lot of folks went into the fantasy season saying, hey, look, maybe this isn't Anthony Richardson, but it could be the next best thing. I'm here to tell you, I don't know. I'm sort of feeling like Daniels could be better than Anthony Richardson.
I don't know if I'm going to go there yet, all right, but I think he's in the conversation, yeah. What did we hear at draft time? A lot of people wanted a quarterback who can move, right? You don't want the guy who's going to take 5-7 steps and throw the football anymore because you want that additional rushing yards. You get 50, 60 yards, that's a touchdown, right? That's why Josh Allen is so valuable. Lamar Jackson is so valuable, right? You go up and down. Jalen Hurts. You go up and down here. I think Daniels is going to be a good quarterback. I think Washington got their guy, and he can throw the football too. We know McLaurin's a really good wide receiver. It may not be much else there. We'll see what McCaffrey can be. Luke McCaffrey can be there in time. But I do have hope for him. I think at season's end he's going to be a quarterback one. It may be a low end quarterback one, but a quarterback one nonetheless.
Yeah, I was really impressed watching him in that game. All right, now Anthony Richardson, look, he's going to have a big year. He's going to have a big fantasy year. There's no question about it. I don't know about the long-term viability here. And look, give him credit. He hung in there with the Houston Texans. My fear for him, George, is that when you go back and you watch film, if you protect the deep ball against Richardson, he could hurt you with his legs. And that may be where all of his fantasy value is coming from. I cannot see him throwing two 70-yard bombs like he did again.
That should come in time, right? Practice time. I think he will get better here. I think Richardson is going to be fine. Does need to learn how to avoid hits. All right. Once again, that hit. Remember that hit from Tua last night? He initiated it. Slide. The rules are made for you not to get hit. Take advantage of them.
Welcome back to Bare Knuckle Fighting, main event here on SportsGrid. Now, while we've had a couple weeks off here in action, no fights, we had to, obviously look ahead at what we got coming up because it's going to be a big run through the end of the year for the BKFC, starting with that Marbella card. But right after that, a couple weeks later, we got some big fights over in Denver, and one of the ladies is going to be on that card. Been on the show a bunch of times. It's going to be Sydney Sundance Smith. She's got a big fight coming up against Kat Paprocki on that card. We're looking forward to seeing her fight again, and we bring her on now. Sydney, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it. Before we start and get into the fighting aspect of things and what all the other things that are going on, I want to give my condolences. We saw on social media that your longtime dog, unfortunately, passed away recently, and I'm sure that obviously that's a very hard thing to deal with, any loss. So we are sorry for your loss.
Thank you. I like to think I gave him a good 17 years. He was born on the same farm that I was, so but I have one of his puppies, the only male out of the litter, so I just try and stay focused on the positive, and look at what I have and how many years we had together. And a crazy little kitten showed up at my house like a week before I had to put him down, and now I have a cat, so there's that.
That's an incredible run, 17 years. I mean, you always see, when you see someone pass away and you see the age, sometimes as a person, a dog, you're like, oh, well, it's sad. And then you see, it's like, oh, at least they had a good run. 17 years is a great run. It's for man's best friend there. So I'm glad you got to have all that time and that he got to live a great life with you in that time. But now, unfortunately, like you said, he's gone, but we, new life in there. So that's great. When one door closes, a window opens. So there you go. And a beautiful little cat in the family. Yeah. I'm sure your son's loving that. So congratulations on that.
Yes.
We haven't seen you in a while since that fight over Knuckle Mania 4. But, obviously always busy training. We've seen you, you post videos all the time about the different ways you try to get training in. Obviously being a mother at the same time, it's a lot of time, taking care of your child to try to get in that extra training is always hard, but we always see you fitting it in there. But also getting some hobbies in there, I see as well. It was some great posts that you put up of sewing your own outfit and then crocheting. I mean, my mom has crochet, my grandma's crochet, but all I've gotten out of them is blankets. I mean, the whole dress you made here, the pattern and everything, very impressive.
Thank you. I made it up. Yeah.
Came out
I've been crocheting thank you. I've been doing crocheting for longer than I've been fighting. But I've never made clothes until this year. I don't know why. Mostly just blankets and hats. I don't know. But I saw some things online this year and I was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to try that. And then I just loved it. And I was like, let me do. And I wore a lot of it too. And, I got a lot of compliments and people, just like, I can't believe you made that. So, I think it's cool, especially the younger generation is kind of getting more interested in making their own stuff and being self-sufficient and homesteading and stuff like that. And I just found that really interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to have to give my mom some grief. I mean, I don't think I could pull off a crocheted shirt myself, but still, she's got to give me something else. We've got to expand her horizon here on what she's doing, especially now she's got some more free time retired and hanging out with just my dad. But great job to you, and you're always keeping busy, finding different ways to, work your mind besides just fighting. That's always great to do. But now we go back to, obviously BKFC and your career that we've talked to you about many times, coming off the loss to Crystal. Obviously, it was a tough fight for you going up in short notice and a higher weight class. Was it a lot tougher to fight on that short notice and the extra weight? Were those some of the things that held you back? What do you think were the biggest issues for you in that fight out there in Los Angeles?
So honestly, like a lot of people are like, why did you even do that? First of all, I think I'm very clearly not normal. And so if I see something or I see an opportunity, I'm like, hey, I'll try that. It might not be the best idea, but I have to figure that out for myself, And I don't even walk around at 135. It's usually like 132 and below. It depends on, what point in camp I'm at. And so I was like, I'll figure it out, like I'll wear a bunch of clothes or something so I get there. And I was like chugging water and trying to eat as much as I could. Like I was chugging milk. Like I was just trying to put as much weight on as possible because I knew I wasn't close to 135. And so we get there to like the weigh-ins, and sometimes commissions will let you weigh in with your clothes on and stuff, California was not. They were not playing any games. Like she wanted me to take my hair tie off. That's how like down to the wire they wanted you to be when you were weighing in. And I was panicking. I was like, oh no, like, we're not going to be within 5 pounds. Like, this is not good. So I get on the scale and I was 134. I don't know. Like Jesus did that. I have no idea. And so we get to fight night and I was only 130.6. So if that tells you anything, like I don't weigh that much, and I tried. And so I was like, screw it, like it is what it is. Like I knew I was going to be lighter than her on fight night and I didn't care. We went out there and then honestly, like when you're in the moment, everything happens so quickly, but it's like it's in slow motion at the same time. It's very hard to describe. And so I took, I guess it was a knuckle to my eye, like into my eyeball. And so my whole eye just like went black. And I literally thought to myself, I was like, did my retina just detach? I was like, well, that's probably not good, you know? And so I'm sitting there like trying to clear my eye out. And I remember slipping an uppercut. And then she caught me with that too right here. Then this eye swelled up. And I was like, crap, I can't see. And then so like I kind of just turned my head and I was like just trying to clear my eyes out. And this one started to fade like to red. So I was like, maybe it wasn't my retina. And I was like, we're good. And I remember thinking to myself, hey, you gotta like turn back in and throw or he's gonna call the fight. And so like I just remember turning back in to throw and he had already, he was stepping in and calling the fight. So, I was just it is what it is, but I didn't feel like I was finished, but I mean, she got the better of me and it is what it is, you live to fight another day and you learn from your mistakes and you just keep moving forward. And I'm not ashamed of it, but I wish it would have gone differently, but it is what it is.
Of course, and people can see the videos and the pictures afterwards. Like you said, those eyes just swelled right up pretty quick. That it's got to be pretty hard to fight when you can't see. And as a famous Southern California once told us, milk was a bad choice. Probably walking around chugging milk in Southern California did not go very well. We're gonna take a quick break. We're gonna come right back with Sundance Smith here, talking about her fight coming up in Denver.
Do we have a fantasy star on our hands here, George? Here is the question with Jaden Daniels of the Washington Commanders. A lot of folks went into the fantasy season saying, hey, look, maybe this isn't Anthony Richardson, but it could be the next best thing. I'm here to tell you, I don't know. I'm sort of feeling like Daniels could be better than Anthony Richardson.
I don't know if I'm going to go there yet, all right, but I think he's in the conversation, yeah. What did we hear at draft time? A lot of people wanted a quarterback who could move, right? You don't want the guy who's going to take 5-7 steps and throw the football anymore because you want that additional rushing yards. You get 50, 60 yards, that's a touchdown, right? That's why Josh Allen is so valuable. Lamar Jackson is so valuable, right? You go up and down. Jalen Hurts. You go up and down here. I think Daniels is going to be a good quarterback. I think Washington got their guy, and he can throw the football too. We know McLaurin's a really good wide receiver. It may not be much else there. We'll see what McCaffrey can be. Luke McCaffrey can be there in time. But I do have hope for him. I think at season's end he's going to be a quarterback one. It may be a low end quarterback one, but a quarterback one nonetheless.
Yeah, I was really impressed watching him in that game. All right, now Anthony Richardson, look, he's going to have a big year. He's going to have a big fantasy year. There's no question about it. I don't know about the long-term viability here. And look, give him credit. He hung in there with the Houston Texans. My fear for him, George, is that when you go back and you watch film, if you protect the deep ball against Richardson, he could hurt you with his legs. And that may be where all of his fantasy value is coming from. I cannot see him throwing 2 70-yard bombs like he did again.
That should come in time, right? Practice time. I think he will get better here. I think Richardson's going to be fine. Does need to learn how to avoid hits. All right. Once again, remember that hit from Tua last night? He initiated it. Slide. The rules are made for you not to get hit. Take advantage of them.
Welcome back to Bare Knuckle Fighting's main event here on SportsGrid. We continue to talk to Sydney Sundance Smith as she prepares for her next fight against Kat Poprocki on BKFC 67 at the end of the month here out there in Denver. And Sydney, while we wrap up things here with your last fight, Knucklemania 4, obviously we talked about how it didn't go your way. Obviously it wasn't the night you wanted with the fight. Took a chance, didn't work out. But, I mean, obviously, we've talked to you many times and always positive, always find the best in things. And you certainly did that night too, as you can see by your social media, people might be like, oh man, that must have sucked that night. But seemed like you had a great time afterwards. Still, you got pictures with Dan Mergliotta. You're hanging out with Nate Diaz, and of course AC Slater himself, Mario Lopez, who's not going to be involved with the BKFC and DAZN. It seems like you still had a great time, even though the fight didn't go the way you wanted.
Oh man, I had a blast. Like I met people I have wanted to meet my entire life, and I got to speak at the LA Dream Center to their recovery program, and that's something that's that was very special to me because I've been in their shoes before, and so to be able to go out there and say, "Hey, man, if God can do this for me, He can do it for you too." That was super powerful, and like I've said before, there are more ways to win than just getting your hand raised. And I believe that God called me out there for a reason. And if he says go, I go, and I don't ask questions. And, sometimes our ways are not his ways, right? So, I might have gone out there with the intention to win a fight, but he might have had me go out there with the intention to win souls. And, which one is more important? But I would like to win fights, but, I'll take either one.
Always trying to stay positive and pay it forward. Great job by you, still making the best out of your trip for sure. Now you get this new fight out in Denver, fighting against Paprocki. She hasn't been to the BKFC before. This is her debut. Have you been able to find out and find any footage that you can use? What do you know about her? What are you looking from her in this fight as you get ready to get back in the squared circle?
I am very thankful, first and foremost, to be back at 115. I actually watched her on the season of The Ultimate Fighter that she was on when it aired. So I'm familiar with her. I actually thought it was kind of cool that it was just her and she and her husband, and they were making the best out of their situation as well. So she's got some grit to her for sure. So I think it's going to be a really, really good fight. It'll be probably like the first time I've fought someone that short. That didn't have the option to take me down in a really long time. So, I'll be thankful for the reach advantage. But I'm not sleeping on her. I know that she's a tough opponent, and, I expect her to bring the fire, but, it is a different world. Bare knuckle it's a different ball game. And so until you get in there and you get hit really, really, really hard in the face one good time, the first time, you don't know if it's for you or not. And so, I'll be happy to welcome her to the family. For sure.
We're looking forward to seeing you back in action there. So is that the plan, to stay down this weight class? Is this what the future holds, or still kind of just this is where you want to be, but if other opportunities arise and you got to move up a little bit, you're okay with that too? What is the plan for you going forward?
So we were offered a couple of other opportunities at different weight classes, but right now the focus is 115. That's my natural weight class, and I want that belt. And I know that if nobody else can beat her, I can. And with all due respect, but I want my shot. And I believe that I am one of the best in the world at 115, and I intend to prove that. And whoever I have to go through to get there, that's totally fine. But at 115, I deserve to move up in the ranks, and I deserve to keep fighting the women at 115. And whoever wants to come in at 115, man, like I'll fight you too. But I want the girls who are in the way to the belt, and then I want the belt. Plain and simple.
Sydney Sundance Smith, we appreciate your time. I was always looking forward to seeing you get back out there in Denver. Is there anything you're doing to prep for that the change in altitude? Obviously coming from Virginia, going all the way up into the mountains. Is there anything special you're doing? And you have to get there early, or is it just got to make sure you have that cardio and stamina high and ready to go no matter what?
Yeah, it's just so we got there a little bit early for New Mexico, and honestly, like it is what it is, right? Elevation is going to be what it's going to be. And so I think I learned that just having your cardio to a certain level is beneficial. And then as much as I can, I'm going to try and get over this month over to our highest point called Elliott's Knob. So it's pretty high up there. I think it's like 4,000 some feet, and try and do some cardio up there. But that's about it. I'm just going to go do my thing, man. And I've got cardio for days, so let's go prove it.
Sydney, thanks so much for joining us. Looking forward to seeing you fight again. And, good luck in this next fight out there, October 25th.
Thank you.
Do we have a fantasy star on our hands here, George? Here is the question with Jaden Daniels of the Washington Commanders. A lot of folks went into the fantasy season saying, hey, look, maybe this isn't Anthony Richardson, but it could be the next best thing. I'm here to tell you, I don't know. I'm sort of feeling like Daniels could be better than Anthony Richardson.
I don't know if I'm going to go there yet, all right, but I think he's in the conversation, yeah. What did we hear at draft time? A lot of people wanted a quarterback who can move, right? You don't want the guy who's going to take 5-7 steps and throw the football anymore because you want that additional rushing yards. You know, you get 50, 60 yards, that's a touchdown, right? That's why Josh Allen is so valuable. Lamar Jackson is so valuable, right? You go up and down. Jalen Hurts. You go up and down here. I think Daniels is going to be a good quarterback. I think Washington got their guy, and he can throw the football too. We know McLaurin's a really good wide receiver. It may not be much else there. We'll see what McCaffrey can be. Luke McCaffrey can be there in time. But I do have hope for him. I think at season's end he's going to be a quarterback one. It may be a low end quarterback one, but a quarterback one nonetheless.
Yeah, I was really impressed watching him in that game. All right, now Anthony Richardson, look, he's going to have a big year. He's going to have a big fantasy year. There's no question about it. I don't know about the long-term viability here. And look, give him credit. He hung in there with the Houston Texans. My fear for him, George, is that when you go back and you watch film, if you protect the deep ball against Richardson, he could hurt you with his legs. And that may be where all of his fantasy value is coming from. I cannot see him throwing 2 70-yard bombs like he did again.
That should come in time, right? Practice time. I think he will get better here. I think Richardson is going to be fine. Does need to learn how to avoid hits. All right. Once again, that hit. Remember that hit from Tua last night? He initiated it. Slide. The rules are made for you not to get hit. Take advantage of them.
Welcome back into Bare Knuckle Fighting main event here on SportsGrid as we continue to look forward at what we have coming down the pike in a couple of weeks here with these cards coming up. Had a couple of weeks off here, but we're going to get right back into action. A lot of great fights in October, November, and finishing out the year for the BKFC. One of those is, of course, going to be that card out in Denver, October 25th. And one of the guys we're going to see returning to the BKFC Squared Circle for that is Ramiro Figueroa. Ramiro, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate your time. Of course, the Denver lightweight coming in there. Going to be fighting Carl Deaton at BKFC 67. Before we get into the fight you have coming up next month, or this month now that we're into October, and maybe even your last fight that you had, I want to first touch back on your career before you even got to the BKFC. I mean, you had a great boxing record at such a young age. You already had, a nice record there in pro boxing, glove boxing for people who didn't know. You started off slow, had a little bit of issues in the beginning, but then went on a 5-fight win streak, coming before you went to the BKFC. So what made you make the switch to the BKFC? And I've already, I've read on the articles they wrote about you for the BKFC that you love it. You weren't just here to try, you really want to be part of the BKFC. But what was the initial thought that made you take the gloves off and make that change?
First and foremost, I just want to say thank you for having me on. And what made me want to make that change was I wanted a new sort of excitement. If I'm being honest, I started getting used to the boxing world, and I wanted something to get me excited, something to give me the chills, something to get me nervous, something to make me, how do you say it? Yeah, just excited. And the BKFC is what did it for me.
Well, I'm happy to hear that it did and that we have you there. I mean, you obviously had that excitement before your fighting career started young. I saw that you were talking about how you used to take the bus to the gym before you could drive. You couldn't even, get there yourself with your own wheels right there. You had to take public transportation, but you loved it so much, the combat sports and getting into boxing like you did that, you get there any way you had to.
That is correct. I used to catch the bus at age 12 all the way up to maybe 17, 18 when I was able to start driving. I would drive it. I would catch the bus all the way to Thornton, roughly about an hour and a half drive. With all the stops. And once I was able to drive, it was only a 12-minute drive for me. So, that discipline and commitment I had to do throughout those years, it was worth it.
It shows the love you had for it, and that you've continued to do it. Now you're still, still very young. in life and in your career. So there's still plenty more to go, and we can't wait to see what becomes of you now. But your first fight against Brett Hudson is very, it was a great fight, it was a great performance. Very impressive there on the prospect card, May 31st. You got the second round finish of him in that fight. What was it like for you to make that debut? What were some of the things maybe that were different than what you expected? What were some of the things that you enjoyed, or that you maybe threw you off a little bit at first? Because it's a big difference from taking off those gloves to just hitting the guy right in the face with bare knuckles. It's not something that everyone either likes or can even get used to right away. But obviously, you're taking to it like a fish out of water. But what was different for you in that first fight?
One of the things that made it way different than it's not boxing. It's called bare knuckle boxing, but really, the rules change. You could clinch, you could hold. It's a whole new game. Like I said, it's not like a sport that I've done. I've street fought multiple times throughout my life. It's not even the same. It doesn't compare to any street fight. You're out there, you're getting paid. You're fighting somebody who's been training months to fight you and beat you. So it's not an easy game. You got to be there mentally. You got to be there ready in general, and anything could happen in that square circle. So just the training, the clinching, those are the new things that I had to learn and get adjusted to for this fight.
Especially for someone like you who, is a very good counter puncher, who's very good with their defense. I know, you talk to a lot of boxers. It's a lot different when you take that glove off and no longer, those glancing blows off the glove that, protecting you no longer there. Now, all of a sudden, there's a lot more openings for that defense that you have to really work on. I'm sure that's been a big focal point for you. But, how did you feel after that? Obviously, it was a great performance. Obviously, you went in there and did what you were hoping to do, getting the win. But what did it feel like? What was the different rush and the different emotions and things you had to deal with coming out of that fight that, you weren't used to in your young career?
Most definitely. One of the biggest things was the amount of support that I had from my family and friends at first to begin with. Everybody was asking me, why am I doing this? I'm crazy. I should just stick to boxing. And, I was just letting them know. I was letting them know the same thing I let you guys know, is I just wanted something different, new excitement. And I thought I was going to go in there not getting much support, but in fact, I went out with even way more support than what I came in with. I gained so many fans, and it was just amazing. It was a new experience, and I don't regret it, and I'm excited to keep coming on forward.
We're excited to keep seeing you out there. Like we said, we're going to be back there at the end of the month now, up there in Denver, your hometown. But I saw that you're still going back and forth. You just had a glove boxing fight the beginning of September. What's that been like for you to go back and forth? Is it hard to, do you got to mix up your training much? Are there different things that you have to focus on more when you're training for one fight versus the other? Or is it just, pretty natural either way, just maybe, making sure you focus on which rules you're fighting for that night?
A lot of my style, in which I think I will become very successful in the BKFC, is going to come from the boxing background. Like I said earlier, there's a few things I have to learn for the clinch, and my goal is not to get in the clinch, but I will know how to get out of the clinch if it's needed. So my style is boxing, and that's how I'm going to win all these fights. I'm not here to knock people out. I'm here to break people down, and if the knockout comes with me breaking people down, then that's where it's going to come out of. I'm not going in there swinging for the fences. I'm in there smart, and I'm going to do what I have to do to come out victorious.
We talk about, the different rule sets and, coming out of fighting out of the clinch instead of using it for defensive tactics like it often happens in glove boxing. Now you're fighting a guy in Carl Deaton who is just newly signed to the BKFC, so he hasn't had any experience in that squared circle. You have the edge there, but, he has a long career in combat sports and MMA, having fought in the UFC, the PFL, different organizations. What do you feel like you can take from the tape that you might see of him fighting MMA and his previous fights that you can use in your fight against him? Or is it just you got to focus on what you want to do and put that, on him?
First and foremost, I just want to say I don't think anybody has the edge over anybody because this is a whole new game. This is a street fight. Anything can happen. All it takes is one hit. So me having that one fight on him, I don't think it's going to make a difference. I don't expect anything different. I do know what my job is, and I'm going to go in there and do it. And the experience, he may have a lot of fights in the UFC and MMA and all that, but if you look at my background as well, I have probably just about the same amount of fights. I started when I was 12. I've had over 58 amateur fights. I've had like 4 or 5 semi-pro fights, and then I'm on my 9th pro fight. So, the experience, I believe we're very, very equal. The only thing that, would concern me, which what we're preparing for, is he is he's a wrestler. So if he knows how to get in the clinch, he's going to have the upper end on me right there because he's been doing it for so many years, which is why we're preparing for the clinch and to fight out of it the best we can.
You talk about, wanting that new challenge. That's why you came to the BKFC. So you also said that you were actually offering, a different opponent, but you wanted a tougher fight. So now you get this guy, Carl Teeton. So, always trying to challenge yourself and your eyes on that belt. You want to be holding that. You want to make a statement, move up in those rankings. So not to look past Teeton, but obviously, if you want to move up those rankings, you probably have your eyes set on somebody. Is there anybody that you're looking for your next fight to maybe move you up into that top 5 and get your name out there?
I'm always looking for the best fights, including my boxing. If you look at my resume, I fight the best. And if I'm being honest, I don't care who I fight. Whoever they put in front of me. When I say I don't care who I fight, I do. I don't want to fight no bum that I know I'm gonna knock out. I want to fight the best. So whoever's the best up in line, whoever they say is better than me, give me that guy.
Well, BKFC lightweight Ramiro Figueroa, looking forward to seeing you fight in front of your hometown fans in Denver coming up at the end of the month. Thanks so much for joining us. Looking forward to that fight.
Do we have a fantasy star on our hands here, George? Here is the question with Jaden Daniels of the Washington Commanders. A lot of folks went into the fantasy season saying, hey, look, maybe this isn't Anthony Richardson, but it could be the next best thing. I'm here to tell you, I don't know. I'm sort of feeling like Daniels could be better than Anthony Richardson.
I don't know if I'm going to go there yet, all right, but I think he's in the conversation, yeah. What did we hear at draft time? A lot of people wanted a quarterback who could move, right? You don't want the guy who's going to take 5-7 steps and throw the football anymore because you want that additional rushing yards. You get 50, 60 yards, that's a touchdown, right? That's why Josh Allen is so valuable. Lamar Jackson is so valuable, right? You go up and down. Jalen Hurts. You go up and down here. I think Daniels is going to be a good quarterback. I think Washington got their guy, and he can throw the football too. We know McLaurin's a really good wide receiver. It may not be much else there. We'll see what McCaffrey can be. Luke McCaffrey can be there in time. But I do have hope for him. I think at season's end he's going to be a quarterback 1. It may be a low end quarterback 1, but a quarterback 1 nonetheless.
Yeah, I was really impressed watching him in that game. All right, now Anthony Richardson, look, he's going to have a big year. He's going to have a big fantasy year. There's no question about it. I don't know about the long-term viability here. And look, give him credit. He hung in there with the Houston Texans. My fear for him, George, is that when you go back and you watch film, if you protect the deep ball against Richardson, he could hurt you with his legs. And that may be where all of his fantasy value is coming from. I cannot see him throwing 2 70-yard bombs like he did again.
That should come in time, right? Practice time. I think he will get better here. I think Richardson is going to be fine. Does need to learn how to avoid hits. All right. Once again, that hit. Remember that hit from Tua last night? He initiated it. Slide. The rules are made for you not to get hit. Take advantage of them.
Welcome back to Bare Knuckle Fighting's main event here on SportsGrid. We continue to look ahead to that Denver card this week as we have lots of great fights on that. And one of the guys who's going to be on that card is one we talked to a couple weeks ago. We're just waiting to sign on that dotted line after some great performances up in Canada. And now he is locked in with the BKFC. We bring him to the U.S., getting back stateside. That is Hassan Al-Hamin coming in here now. Hungry Hassan joining us as we get ready to see him fight again. Hassan, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate your time as always. It hasn't been too long since we talked to you because, obviously you put on such a great performance in Edmonton. You and your whole team, They were anxious to get you guys back in there, and here we see you coming down to Denver. How excited were you when everything was finally done with that contract, and you earned that spot in the main BKFC lineup after those great Prospect Series fights?
Thank you for having me back. I'm actually super excited. I knew if I put in a dominant performance for that last Edmonton card that I would probably be given a shot for a numbered card with BKFC. I never would have chosen the Denver card. That's such a big card for the main event is the Cruiserweight World Championship, right? I never would have expected that. So I'm hyped for that.
It's going to be great. We'll talk about the fight specifically in a second and the challenges that poses, especially fighting in that area. But how long did it take for this fight to come about? I mean, obviously, it didn't take too long for things to get put together. But was it right when they came to you with the contract, said, "Oh, and we have this in mind," or was it you signed the deal, you kept training, wait a few weeks, and then they got back to you? How quickly did this get put together after you were put on the roster?
Honestly, right after the fight, after that Edmonton card, I just went right back into training. I wanted to fight in Spain, but unfortunately, that didn't work out. So I was expecting something in October or ending of November. And I got it right in the middle, right at the ending of October, beginning of November.
Absolutely did. Yeah, you did mention that Spain card. I mean, that seems to be, we had that at the beginning of the year. Everybody wanted to be on the LA card in Knucklemania. Once this card got announced, everyone was talking about this one. But you want to talk about loaded cards, that one is stacked. So it was hard, I'm sure, to get a slot for anybody from the U.S. that wasn't fighting in one of those title fights. Want to, of course, highlight the European fighters as well. So, we get you soon enough, though. I'm glad that we still get you quickly, that they didn't have to put you on the shelf too long to wait for another card up in Canada or something like that. What's it going to be like for you to change the fighting? I mean, I don't know. Have you fought in the U.S. before? Has it been, is it something that you're used to in the past, or is this going to be a new adjustment for you?
Honestly, I've never fought in the U.S. at all before. I like to visit there very regularly, so I know kind of what to expect for the altitude and all that stuff. So it's not going to be really much of a change for me.
Yeah, I was looking that up actually because I thought Edmonton was, a little flatter. So when you got to go up to Denver or Salt Lake, obviously that affects people, or even Albuquerque. It's still a good 3,000 feet up to go up into the Mile High City there. So is there anything that you and your camp are focused on, and anything that you guys are going to be trying to do? Is there anywhere you go to a different locale to train some different things to get used to, doing your best at the altitude? What's in the plans for you guys as you prepare for this fight?
Honestly, nothing changes at all. What we've been doing has been working really, really well. I've had family live in New Mexico before. I visit them regularly, so I know kind of that 3,000 altitude feeling. So we're not going to change anything, just improve on what we got so far.
We're looking forward to see. I mean, I don't know how you can improve much more than what you've shown already, but we can't wait to see that in this fight. Now you are fighting, as we said, Dusty Sparks. He's going to make his debut for the BKFC. Do you think, obviously it's a young sport, and it's hard to really, gauge what it's like before you actually do it, from what we hear from many of the fighters who make that crossover from other areas of combat sports. For you, it's not like you're a 5-year veteran or something, but you still have a couple fights under your belt. Do you think that experience is something that gives you an edge, coming into a fight like this, because you've, gone through that a couple times already?
Honestly, in bare knuckle, sometimes experience does make a difference. If you have bare knuckle experience prior, but if you have fight experience and you have that grit and you have that, the mean in you, it doesn't really matter if you fought bare knuckle before or not. You could just do it.
What are you expecting from Dusty? Obviously, like I said, we're not going to have seen him in the BKFC to have that kind of tape, but have you looked and studied some of his past fights and seen, what that could bring over? He doesn't have a ton of pro experience, even in MMA, so this is going to be new for him in general. Just fights, the pro fight, circuit in general for him is still a new, fresh thing. Is there any tape of him that you actually got in the study, or is it just focusing on you, your game plan, and just steamrolling through like you've done so far?
To be honest, I don't care what my opponent brings. I just focus on myself and just make sure that I improve every single fight. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't really care about what my opponent has to bring to the table.
Well, we've seen so far that it doesn't matter what they bring. You're just going to do your thing and put everyone on their butts so far. This is obviously, like you said, a big fight for you. You're excited to be on this card and be part of it. The Denver fight fans, we've seen how great the Edmonton fight fans are on the fights that you've had before, but also Denver has been a huge thing for the BKFC. The cards that they put on there always get a lot of fans, and it even gets a lot of fighters because there are so many of those camps that have kind of moved to the elevation of the Mile High City. So, is that something that excites you as well? That after you go out there and do your business, and you get to go out and watch fights, and the other members of the sports that you're going to be mingling with that are going to be there because they've gotten some great names there throughout their fights in Denver.
For sure. Like the stadium we had here in Edmonton only takes up around 1,000, 2,000 people max. Compared to the one we're fighting in Denver, it's about 10,000 people. So right after the fight, I'm going to be out there with the fans, watching the fights and having fun with them, doing whatever we need to do, right? Just enjoy the time, enjoy the moment.
So obviously, when you're fighting on those Prospect Series cards, the focus is to get signed. Now you're signed. Now you're on a big-time numbered card here for the BKFC. You're taking it all in. You're getting ready to enjoy it. But what's the focus on after this fight? Obviously, this fight is the focus first and foremost. After that, what are the plans? What are you looking for? Is there a timeline you have in your head of where you want to be, fighting for a title? Is it within a year? Are there names that you've scoped out in this division that you want to put on a hit list and try to use to climb up the rankings? What is your outlook now that you are on the BKFC roster?
To me, it doesn't matter. I want to fight again within 3 months after my next fight coming up here, within 3 months, and then fight any gatekeeper that there is.
Hungry Hassan, thanks so much for joining us. Great to talk to you again. Congratulations on being signed. We're looking forward to seeing you fight out in Denver.
Thank you.
Do we have a fantasy star on our hands here, George? Here is the question with Jaden Daniels of the Washington Commanders. A lot of folks went into the fantasy season saying, hey, look, maybe this isn't Anthony Richardson, but it could be the next best thing. I'm here to tell you, I don't know. I'm sort of feeling like Daniels could be better than Anthony Richardson.
I don't know if I'm going to go there yet, all right? But I think he's in the conversation, yeah. What did we hear at draft time? A lot of people wanted a quarterback who could move, right? You don't want the guy who's going to take 5-7 steps and throw the football anymore because you want that additional rushing yardage. You get 50, 60 yards, that's a touchdown, right? That's why Josh Allen is so valuable. Lamar Jackson is so valuable, right? You go up and down. Jalen Hurts. You go up and down here. I think Daniels is going to be a good quarterback. I think Washington got their guy, and he can throw the football too. We know McLaurin's a really good wide receiver. It may not be much else there. We'll see what McCaffrey can be. Luke McCaffrey can be there in time. But I do have hope for him. I think at season's end he's going to be a quarterback one. It may be a low end quarterback one, but a quarterback one nonetheless.
Yeah, I was really impressed watching him in that game. All right, now Anthony Richardson, look, he's going to have a big year. He's going to have a big fantasy year. There's no question about it. I don't know about the long-term viability here. And look, give him credit. He hung in there with the Houston Texans. My fear for him, George, is that when you go back and you watch film, if you protect the deep ball against Richardson, he could hurt you with his legs. And that may be where all of his fantasy value is coming from. I cannot see him throwing 2 70-yard bombs like he did again.
That should come in time, right? Practice time. I think he will get better here. I think Richardson's going to be fine. Does need to learn how to avoid hits. All right. Once again, that hit. Remember that hit from Tua last night? He initiated it. Slide. The rules are made for you not to get hit. Take advantage of them.
Welcome back to Bare Knuckle Fighting Main Event as we wrap things up here on another episode. Thank you so much for joining us as we saw what was going on in Bare Knuckle Fighting, looked ahead to what is coming up in the next couple weeks as we have some big fights coming down the way for us to see. We've been waiting for them patiently. Obviously, you can't be throwing cards every week, but still, when you get those couple weeks off, it's like, oh, come on, you start itching again, and we will get back into action very, very soon with the BKFC. Thanks so much to Sydney Sundance Smith for joining us, talking about what happened at Knucklemania 4 and what she is going to be trying to do here in Denver, getting back to her winning ways. And for also telling me I got to really talk to my mother about expanding her horizon here. Stop giving me blankets. We have too many of them. Let's go. Let's make some shirts, some gloves, some dresses, something. Let's expand this. Maybe we even get a side business going. And also thank you to Lightweight Hungry Hassan Al-Hanim, joining us for his first official, carded fight in the BKFC. Obviously, had the 2 Prospect Series fights. Now he makes up to the big cards. Great to see him on there and see how excited he is to be part of the organization in this card that he'll be fighting on out there October 25th. And great to meet Ramiro Figueroa. Talk to him about what he sees in his future with the BKFC after a bunch of fights in glove boxing. Still very early in his career. It's always funny when you hear someone that young talk about being bored with stuff and having to switch it up. But you know what? I guess if you've been boxing for 10 years, you got to shake it up a little bit. And he has been doing that with the BKFC. A great debut, and we'll see what he does in his next fight out there in Denver, Colorado. Before we get out of here, though, as I teased earlier, we have some new cards that have kind of been announced, kind of put on the website. You might have gotten under your radar if you're not checking the events list. Not much on social media just yet about them. Hopefully, we will get more and more coming out in the coming weeks as we start to hear more of these fighters that are filling out these cards. But there are a couple fights that are going to be going on. We've talked about, obviously, Marbella coming up next week out there in Spain. We've talked about this October 25th card out in Denver, BKFC 67 with Kamosi and DP fighting for that vacant cruiserweight title. But now we have cards on October 26th and November 2nd that we're finding out about and finding more about. Obviously, there's going to be more down the line when we talked about that DAZN deal. They taught us about some of the dates and cards that are going to be, fought on, excluding that one in Philadelphia, going to Pennsylvania for the first time in December. So there are obviously more and more announcements that are going to be coming our way as we continue to follow the BKFC. But apparently October 26th, we're going to get a card in Myrtle Beach. The day after we see them out in Denver, there's going to be one in Myrtle Beach. But I noticed I did not say we will see them in Myrtle Beach, because unless you are in Myrtle Beach, you will not be seeing that card until afterwards, apparently. That we, for those of you who hang out with our boy Brian Socha on his show, the Bare Knuckle Show, every week, heard from Nate Shook, the matchmaker for the BKFC. That is going to be what they call a dark card, where there will be no live coverage on the streaming app or on the website, because obviously it's a quick turnaround going from one place to another. And they plan to do more of these as well. Apparently if you're a wrestling fan, this is something they do, what they call the house shows, where you just have fight cards where it's people who are there get to see it, and then the rest of us maybe get to see it later on. But because they have so many people on the roster, they need to get them in some fights. They need to get them involved, and it's hard to do that every time when you don't have as many cards as you maybe have fighters. So they're going to be holding more and more of these shows where it's just in-house you see it. You get to watch it live. You get to go see it, and then maybe later on you get to see clips or some of the fights on the app or on social media, but not going to be full broadcasts like we're used to with many of the BKFC fights. So this one is a Prospect Series card. Going to be headlined by Brandon Bushaw and Rick Caruso. Bushaw 2-0-1 in the BKFC, all on the Carolina card so far, and he will do that again here with Myrtle Beach. Caruso 1-4-1 in the BKFC, so a lot more experience, but not having the results he has wanted. Lost his first 3, then beat Williams before losing to Justin Ibarola in June. So he's looking to get back into the winning ways here after getting that first taste of it earlier this year. These guys actually fought in May 2023, was ruled a no contest on the Greenville card. So rematching here now in Myrtle Beach, still staying in the Carolinas, looking to get a victory over the other one in the rematch here between these two guys headlining that Prospect Series card. Also, you can have Jeremiah Scott versus Dakota High Pine on that card. Scott got a debut win over Chevy Bridges last October. High Pine 1-3 in the BKFC after losing 3 in a row. His last fight was a loss to Eric Dodson in January. So some guys at the top of these cards looking to get back into the winning ways and maybe get their names back in the mix for the future of the BKFC, as you're going to have plenty of fighters also looking to make their BKFC names known in the Prospect Series card, as we always do. And then also BKFC Newcastle, November 2nd, we're going to see a European heavyweight title between Faulkner and Oscar, and a UK light heavyweight title between Hodgson and Cook. So some great cards we have coming up later on in October and November, and we'll see plenty more, I'm sure, announced soon. Thanks so much for joining us here on SportsGrid. We'll talk to you again next week.